All right, it was for Bath Multimedia and the Cape Coast. Cape Coast and so bar one of the castles is Cape Coast Castle. I had no a historical moment. You've heard about it. Cape Coast Castle, Cape Coast Castle. Ye dear chi aba PM ewaha. Ye babe koto near share the course so ye na namo pension slave trade. What is and the Bath Multimedia ye PM ye no babe ko around near chiro the course so baby ye do almost share ye ye may see ye what into share. BBA or Bath Multimedia. There will be more exclusive updates. Stay tuned.
Some people there for this world, so money did it for. Some people there for this world, oh. promotion they do.
I the national map. Ura Cape Coast Castle. There are a lot of segments that we have. We have the main entrance, access yard, reception. We come to the museum gallery, Palava Hall. That is the second floor. Yeah, the mbako hunina, how the place look like. Yes. Bath Pontimedia, you go share Cape Coast Castle. I wish I had a penny on the nearby Koto. Na watch it anyway. You say,
I'm not doing it.
what for you? It was a I'm not someone. Oh, you're a tall guy. Okay. And the entrance, your friend has a
Male slave dungeon.
okay. And any go through now. Be near. Everything didn't come out. Thank you.
Someone. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Your experience here will take about 45 to an hour, and that you are free to ask questions, you comment and contribute as well. You see the male slave dungeon, the governor's residence, condemned cell down here. Then we finish everything at the door of no return. When the Europeans came to the shores of West Africa, they built so many forts and castles. At the end, we estimate about 60 forts and castles based along the coast of West Africa, and Ghana alone had about 40 of them. And it was all because of the gold which was here, and that made the Portuguese name present-day Ghana Gold Coast. So places like Nigeria, a section of Togo, Niger, Benin called Slave Coast, because it was the place most of the slaves were being captured from. Ivory Coast, Cameroon, they all had their name because of the abundance of resources found there. And the castle being here today should tell that they were walking wherever they were being captured from. If today I tell you to walk from Accra, the capital, to this place, the kind of struggles that you go through before you reach here. Fatigue, hunger, wild animals attack some, and some were drowning in rivers. So they created a resting point for them from the northern part of Ghana to the southern part, so that when they get there, they can rest and continue the journey. We have places like Salaga, Paga, Bikoro, Wenchi, Techiman. Kumasi being the middle point, all the slaves were taken to a place called Asen Manso, where they had their last bath as an African. Over there, their beards and hairs were shaved to hide any form of gray hair. They smeared shea butter on their skin for them to look attractive and also heal their wounds. From Asen Manso to this place, about 65 kilometers, they marched them barefooted to the castle here. When they got here, the very first place that they were taken to was a place called Palava Hall. It was an auction block where the highest bidder there would get a slave, and they were exchanged for commodities like gunpowder, mirror, fabric, ceramics, liquor, salt, knife, beads, and so on. And they were brought to the courtyard here for branding, because it wasn't just one company buying the slaves, so they have to brand them. For the branding, each company had its name or initial or logo on the metal. They just set up fire here, put the metal inside, right from the fire to hot oil, from the oil, either on their chest, arms, back, and even some portion of their ears were being cut off. And they did this for an easily identification before they were separated for the men to be kept here. 100 meters from here, the females to the female slave dungeon. All these stories started when Christopher Columbus claimed he had discovered America, which was a lie. Because when he got there, he met the indigents there. We call them the Red Indians. They established their plantations there, sugar plantation, tobacco plantation, and other mining companies. But then they were using the natives to work on their land. It got to a time they were dying because they were not strong enough. Also, they were introduced to European disease, such as measles, chickenpox, smallpox, influenzas, and so on. But because they know the terrain themselves, they could easily escape. So a Catholic priest called Bartholomew de las Casas, he said, no, let's come and take Africans from here to go and work on our plantation. Because naturally Africans are strong. And the work that they are doing here is not different from the work that they are doing there. Africans could withstand both the tropical and the European disease. So out of this, they agreed to come and take Africans from here to go and work on their plantation. And that's the genesis of the transatlantic slave trade. I made mention of 60 forts and castles based along the coast of West Africa. And I said Ghana alone had about 40 of them. Out of the 40, only 3 were castles. So the first ever European structure on our land here happens to be the St. George's de Listillo de Mina Castle. It is popularly known today as the Emina Castle, built by the Portuguese around 1482. The oldest European structure on our land here, about 543 years old, 183 years older than this one. The second one happens to be the Christianborg at Accra, built by the Denmark in the year 1661. And the last one happens to be the Cape Coast Castle. 1664 credit given to the British. So in terms of castle, this one happens to be the smallest one. But in terms of dungeons, we have the bigger dungeons here because this castle was purposely built for the transatlantic slave trade, and it was built at the peak of the trade. That's why we have underground dungeons like this. If you go to the Mina Castle and the Christianborg, their dungeons were initial storerooms before it was converted to dungeon. But this one was built for the trade. That's why we can see the whole edifice in this way. I'll pause here. If you have any question, comment, contribution, you let me know. But then if there's nothing as such, then we all go inside here to see whatever transpired at the male slave dungeon as well. So please will come with me. At the sun rays, because here minimum is a day, a maximum 3 to 4 months, you will stay here in total darkness. Few seconds, I will turn off the light for you to see how the chambers were when the enslaved Africans were here. 3:12 afternoon, but then you can still see how dark the room is. So imagine around 7 to 8 p.m. It wasn't that easy here. Influx of mosquitoes everywhere. So imagine staying here for about 4 months without light. It wasn't that easy here. Their only source of light and ventilation happens to be the 3 holes up there. People could head about 150 to 200 men here. So mathematically, the 5 will give us about 750 to 1,000 total. The moment you are brought here, you are forced to eat. You defecate, urinate, sleep, and do everything here. In the castle here, we have 2 types of slave. We have the commercial ones and the domestic ones. The commercial ones were those kept here, just to await the shipment. The domestic ones were those coming to clean the dungeon. But because they were not doing that on a regular basis or every day, when they come, the few that they could clean, they cover the rest with sun. So it got to a time the sun messed up with their fuses, vomit, tears, blood, flesh, everything. And it accumulated to a level like this. So the floor that we are standing on right now happens to be the original floor of the dungeon. And that whatever we walk on from the second room to the last room happens to be the solidified waste or the decomposed waste. So you'll be walking on their fuses, tears, blood, flesh, everything mixed with the sun from the second room to the last room. You are seeing bricks here, no bricks here. Bricks here because in the year 1974, we got this room excavated by some students from the University of Ghana, led by Professor Ampami. They excavated only this room and they left this portion for us to see, telling us at first all the floor here was something like this, or even something like this. So if you are to excavate the rest of the chambers, you'll be seeing something like burnt bricks over there. So this is the DNA of our ancestors. The trenches in the middle here are the back and both sides here, serving as the passageway for the liquid waste to pass through to the sea. Because they believe that when it rains, and by the direction of the rain, you should direct the rain through these holes to fall down, come and wash everything to the sea. But you can ask yourself, how often does it rain? And maybe when it rains, maybe the rain will not direct the rain here. That's why all these food particles were able to mix together to that level. Once you die here as an African, there's no befitting barrier for you. Bodies loaded into sack, cannonballs added straight to the sea. So the Atlantic Ocean there happens to be a mass barrier for most of our ancestors. But for the British, when they died here, they were buried at the courtyard. So all that place happens to be a cemetery for the Europeans. Only this room had a door shut on them. The rest of the chambers, there wasn't anything like a door. But then that doesn't mean you can be moving up and down free. No. They were in chains and shackles. So if let's say I'm chained with my brother here and I want to sit down, he has to sit down as well because we are chained together. A door here because those who were here were seen as rebellious or freedom fighters. They have not committed any suicide for them to be here. They are only saying that they were strong enough to work on their plantation. So when they were here, they wanted to fight for their freedom. But then the British saw them to be a threat to them. So if in case you are here and that you want to fight for your freedom, they will come and take you from here to a place called condemned cell for you to die there. They were fed once or twice a day, and it wasn't a balanced diet. Something like a carbohydrate food just to sustain them till the ship comes in and take them away. The small holes up here. The most rebellious ones were chained on the wall. The bigger hole up there, because it wasn't every day that they were able to come here to give them food. The slaves were more aggressive. So sometimes they would stand up there, then they would train food downwards. So it was more like the survivor of the fittest here. Because those at the back here, some will not get the food as well. There is a new question. Yes, please. Sorry.
Is that the barrier?
This one? Yeah. The third room here, source of light and ventilation up there. Ironically, where we are standing right now, on top of this room was a church. And the name of the church was Society for the Propagation of the Gospel. And it was the Church of England, now Church of Anglican. So even Anglican Church in Ghana here, it all started from the castle here. The hole that you are seeing there, it is in front of the church, and we call it a spy hole. You can ask yourself, why all the places in the castle here? So they didn't see any place for them to build their church, rather on top of a dungeon. And it wasn't a coincidence for the church to be on top of a dungeon. It was something deliberate or intentional, because if you go to the Mina Castle, when the Dutch defeated the Portuguese, they brought the Dutch Reformed Church on top of the female dungeon. When you go to the Christian book at Accra, we have the Presbyterian Church on top of a dungeon. All the bigger churches that we have in Ghana here, they all started from the castles. The Roman Catholic Church started from the Emina Castle by the Portuguese. The first ever Roman Catholic Church in Ghana. If you go to Emina right now, you'll see it there. The Anglican Church from the Cape Coast Castle by the British. The first Anglican Church in Ghana here. When you move outside the castle, you'll see it there. The Methodist Church at the forecourts of the castle by the missionaries. The first ever Methodist Church in Ghana. 2 minutes walk from the Anglican Church, you'll see it there. Presbyterian Church at Accra as well. It was more or less like heaven for those up there and hell for those here. Because whilst they were propagating the gospel that we should love our neighbor as ourselves up there, others were down here suffering. So the first president of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta, once said, when the missionaries arrived here, we had the land, they had the Bible. They taught us how to pray with our eyes closed. But then when we opened our eyes, we had the Bible, they had the land. So now in Ghana here, we have a lot of churches, even than industries. In Ghana here, we do say, the ship that were the Bible, same ship to the captives away. Please any question? Please you come. Point it to the floor here. There is the level of the floor and the decomposed waste. It was very high than this, but because day in, day out, people are coming here, tourists are coming here every day, so it has to compress down. Some years back, we will come to the Cape Coast Castle. As we are standing here, we will do like this, then it will be shaking. It was very soft and causing a lot of sickness here. When the enslaved Africans were here, they were dying day in, day out, because your health condition is different from mine. Maybe you can stay here for a month. Maybe I cannot stay here for a month. And once you die, body is thrown to the sea quickly. You can still see some of the bricks here. That's why I say if you are to excavate the rest of the chambers, you'll be seeing something like burnt bricks as we saw at the first chamber. Let's see the last chamber. You come inside.
Oh, sorry.
Last room here, even if I go and turn off the light, this room bright on its own because of that hole up here. Normally the ship do arrive at dawn. So this one gave them light just to separate the weaker ones from the stronger ones. The weaker ones were kept in this small room to test their faith. Doctors and nurses will come here to examine them. So if in case you are here and you can recover early to join the stronger ones, you move with them. But if in case you don't and the ship leave, then you have to wait for the ship to depart from here to the Americas or the Caribbean, back to Europe, Europe to Africa here. That's why I said here, minimum a day, maximum 3 to 4 months, you stay here in total darkness. It wasn't all the slaves who were here for a long period of time. There were some, the moment they were brought here, the ship was ready, so there was no need for them to stay here. But if you're unfortunate, in the time that you were brought here, there was no ship, then you have to wait for the cycle to go again. The wall that you are seeing here, from this place to that end, it wasn't part of the construction at the initial stage. The actual wall happens to be this one, or the second one here. So the second wall, there was an underground tunnel that will force the stronger ones to pass through, which connect them with the females to the door of no return. Today we cannot go through this tunnel because in the year 1834, Captain George McLean, who was the president of the slave merchant, was commanded to block both the entrance and the exit of the tunnel to symbolize British end of slavery. Slavery was abolished only in British colonies in 1834. It was still going on in different places because the last ship to leave Africa was around 1860 from Senegal to Alabama. So although it was abolished in 1834, about 26 years later on, before everything was finally over, and there comes colonialism as well. There wasn't anything like a shrine or an altar here to block them when the slaves were moving. Before the Europeans came here and introduced we the Africans into Christianity, we didn't know anything about Christianity, but then we have our own way of communicating or worshiping God. We Africans were more spiritual than religious. Those in Cape Coast were coming here to worship their God through a huge rock. Right after this war, you will see the rock there. When the British, Swedish, Danes, Dutch, Portuguese, when they came here, and the land was given to them to set up this whole structure, they were not allowing those from Cape Coast to come here again to worship their God, because slaves will not be kept here, or captives will not be kept here. For you to walk from your house, you enter the castle, you pass through 1,000 men, come and worship and go back home. Nobody will allow you. So they took some of the rock that they were worshiping to the town to continue to worship it. When we gained our independence, 1957, 1960, Ghana became a republic. Then 1974, they brought back the stone to its original place, and they made this altar here. So when you come to Cape Coast, they believe in 77 deities, or 77 lesser gods. And this one happens to be the leader of all the gods in Cape Coast. The name of the god here is called Nana Tabe. So whatever they will do in Cape Coast in terms of spiritualism, either festival, anything, they will come here first to consult before they go outside. We have a priest in charge of the shrine. It is an active shrine till now. So people do come here with their problems every day. So the priest will sit here. For those who come here to see him, they will sit on the stools. Communicate with the priest or the man for their request to be granted. The money here is like you going to church and giving offering. People do come here randomly. They put on the money, put it here and go back home, even without seeing the priest. The chain here isn't the original chain. It's just here for the experiment. That's why you can see it here. Wreaths and flowers here are from tourists like you who visit us here. We believe our ancestors were thrown to the sea, and that we cannot litter the sea with the wreath and the flowers. So we just put it here, just to honor and respect them. That's why they are here. So any place that you will find it in the castle here, they serve the same purpose. This is the question. Then let's continue from this. A cemetery for the Europeans. In the year 1996, excavation took place here, and it was only these 4 graves that we had names or initials written on them. This one happens to be the only black man buried among the Europeans here, and his original name is Kweku Ejiri. Kweku is a name given to a Wednesday-born male in Ghana here. His father was a middleman or a local merchant. The father was bringing some of the slaves to the British here to be auctioned. So because of the connection Kweku's father had with the British, Kweku at the age of 11, he got a scholarship to study in England, Oxford University, to study theology. At the age of 24, he became the first black man to be ordained as an Anglican priest, and they gave him the name Philip. And because they were unable to pronounce the local name Kweku, they anglicized or corrupted it to Kwaku, and it became Philip Kwaku. The following year, he was brought back to the castle here as a teacher, a priest. He was the only black man leading an all-white congregation up here. One person, he cannot dictate whatever should happen in the castle here because it got to a time he tried to speak against the trade going on. But the British said no. This same trade gave you the scholarship to study in England, and you are back telling us we should stop. Something that you have benefited from, so no. Treatment for him in the castle became very bad. He left the castle, went to the town to find something for himself. And it was where he taught the children how to read and write. So in Ghana here, talking about the Western education, we give it to this man, Philip Kwaku. And because of that, the first ever basic school, which was built in Ghana here, was named after him. Philip Kwaku Boys School in Cape Coast. He died at the age of 75, 1816. Let's get closer here.